There is a long, dormant piece of me that loves talking about and reviewing movies. And my friends and associates would always want me to give them recommendations of what movies to see. And now, I go online, I make videos, and I post them online telling people what I think of movies. I may have overcorrected.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet!
You look like shit, Dad.
You should see the other guys.
Who the fuck are you?
Me? I'm nobody.
So now we have Nobody. So Nobody came out this year, 2021, and how best to say, look, so the best way I can describe Nobody is how everybody's describing Nobody, which, funny enough, it's because the same people that produced Nobody also produced this film I'm about to tell you, which is picture John Wick. Everybody knows John Wick. He's got 3 movies, for Christ's sake. Now, picture, we have Nobody, which is more suburban, middle-aged, put his past behind him long ago, John Wick. Like, even longer ago, perhaps, than John Wick himself. I'm going to stop saying John Wick because it's unfair that, like, that's the standard of comparison now for this kind of lane of film, but it's the what we find ourselves in, so here we are. So Nobody came out this year, 2021. I think it was pushed back a little bit due to, the whole, panoramic that was going on this last year. But now here it is, in theaters only, none of this also HBO Max type of crap. So Nobody is directed by, and I'm going to completely butcher this, I think it's Ilya Naishuller. I'm saying it with accent because the man is Russian, I believe. So Ilya Naishuller, again, severely mispronouncing his name. So he does not have an extensive filmography, but what he did direct, that if you were to know him as probably an American watching this, I don't know who watches this, if you were to know him from anything, the man directed Hardcore Henry back in 2015, and I loved Hardcore Henry for a multitude of reasons, but mainly because it is one of the first films of its kind that was like a movie completely shot in first person with like the GoPro type of thing, and the whole movie is like a bloody, violent action movie, so if you get motion sickness, you're probably not going to be able to watch it, but people liked it. I loved it because first person, really cool, really fun action, great soundtrack, and of course it had Sharlto Copley, and I love Sharlto in anything that he's in. So that was a great movie. But he has experience, the director that is, has experience with action and directing in that sense. And it shows through in Nobody. But now he's taken his directing experience, his little bit of prowess, and which he's good at for a guy who hasn't had a lot of experience, it seems, and putting it into this new film, which is by all accounts, a mostly American release, but the villains in it are definitely Russian, so there's a lot of that influence in there too. I thought that was kind of funny. Nobody stars, there's a couple big names in this, a few big names to be fair, but the main guy you're coming to see here is Bob Odenkirk, which I love the man. I think he's great. I love that he started off on the comedy circuit way back in the day with Mr. Show, working on that with David Cross. And, of course, everybody now knows him as Saul Goodman. You know him from when he premiered in Breaking Bad as the skeevy lawyer who was hilarious, stole every scene he was in, and had a couple moments of, you could see there was depth to the character. And thank God that Vince Gilligan comes along and is like, you know what? Here we go, prequel series, baby. Ride the curtails of Breaking Bad right into Better Call Saul. And I love Better Call Saul because it's a much more dramatic role for him to be in. Granted, he still plays the same character, but while there's still comedic elements, there's more focus on who he is as a person. He can shine through and deliver some heartbreaking scenes and some really moving dramatic pieces, which shows you that he's an actor not only capable of eliciting laughter, but also one who can, get you all feeling on your insidey parts. He's a good actor is what I'm saying. And so now here he is playing a character who he used to have a whole life where they call me an auditor. I'd go in there and I'd be the last person you want to see. Basically, this guy that was sent in, legally speaking, but like off the books, but like our government would send him in to take out people that are basically, they're the ones that need to be audited, the ones that, you can't take care of them, you can't arrest them or what have you, so you just audit them, take them out of the equation so they never even exist and there's nobody to arrest. And which basically means that like he was again like ultra like John Wick, good with firearms, excellent with hand-to-hand combat, like a brawler for sure. But for the sake of this movie, he's attempted to move on from his past. It was very much like Nathan Drake in Uncharted 4, if you play those games. He's put behind his life of adventure and violence in search of a more suburban, grounded life with a family. And, I mean, he's trying to be a family man, but you can tell that, between the monotony of his job and almost that Walter White syndrome of, I felt like there's something more I want to do with my life, or along those lines. And sure enough, due to a series of circumstances that I don't want to divulge into too much, he basically ends up getting back into the fray and getting caught back in the crossfire of some Russian gangsters and whatnot. And I have a lot of good stuff to say about this film. I thought personally it was pretty great. It's not looking at an Oscar winner here. It's not like a masterclass in film, as I'll often say, but it was a great film. Fantastic action. The kind of action that makes you go, wow, that was violent, like very violent, but not not pointlessly gory. I'll admit, Hardcore Henry was violent and also very gory. Like, there's some moments where I was like, wow, that was extremely violent, and I enjoyed it, but I know your average consumer or average movie viewer might not. This has that toned down a little bit. It's still very violent. Don't get me wrong. It's very violent, but not like, gory, limbs flying everywhere and all this type of stuff. I thought there was fantastic brawling, so much so where I had a conversation with the franchise because we went to go see it together, shocker, and we were talking about it, and I said, look, John Wick, when it comes down to it, John Wick is flashy, he's, sheen, he's cool, very chic and all this, but John Wick is very much, while he can do hand-to-hand, I think it's more a lot of rolls and disarming techniques for bad guys, but he really excels in weapons play. Like, they highlight and accentuate the guns in all the movies, guns, knives. I loved A Nobody because it was so creative with the violence in terms of, like, he's not rocking guns a lot throughout the whole movie. A lot of the time, he is just going to town, almost like MacGyver. He gets creative with his environment, with the things that are in his environment, and he's just like, rock 'em, sock 'em, just bop, bop, bam, bam, like fucking dudes up. But again, not weapons-based necessarily. He can get weapons out of his environment, but I love the creativity of a movie that just has you going at it with your bare hands and trying to figure out how to use your environment to your advantage. Plus, again, to compare him to Nathan Drake, I do love how he takes a lot of hits. It's not like an action hero where it's like, oh, I'm Jason Statham, I'm going to shoot everybody, and then barely anything will happen to me. I'm going to get a little bruising or a little bit of blood. No, I mean, like, Bob Odenkirk gets fucked up in this movie, but very much like Nathan Drake, while he's getting roughed up, and clearly you can see the man's in pain, he's still going, he's still slugging away, and it's just great. I like that dynamic in film and television where, like, your character that you're following or playing as or you're watching on screen, they're not invincible, they're still humans, so they're going to get roughed up and they're going to keep pushing through it and try to fight the good fight, and that makes you want to root for them even more. Great performance by the cast. I haven't given a whole cast breakdown because if I'm being brutally honest, aside from Bob Odenkirk, there are a couple other big names. One I'm not going to give away, and the other one you'll see if you've seen the trailer. But the family, as far as I'm aware, the family are kind of some no-names. Again, I could be wrong, but none of them jumped out immediately at me. I didn't recognize a lot of the supporting cast. Even the main bad guy, I thought I was going to recognize him. Some like Christoph Waltz or whatever, but no, it's honestly a cast of no-names that still give a good performance. I cared more about this family than I did the entire family in Unhinged when I reviewed that movie. I didn't give a shit about that family. There wasn't enough on screen to make me care about any of them. I also like how the movie didn't take itself too seriously. It's not overtly campy and cliche. That there are a couple moments where the jokes are a little bit, you're like, okay, he wouldn't do that, but it's funny, so I'll give it a pass. Like, there were still serious moments, and like the action never got cartoonish or anything. But John Wick always, it'll be darkly comedic, but John Wick takes itself super seriously. He's dark and brooding. I'm thinking I'm back. And instead you have this, where it's just like, God damn it, that hurt. You're really watching this movie to have a good time, not to watch some gritty, I spit on your grave, rape revenge type of deal. I could go on about the movie for a while, but practical effects, good job. It's very easy in a movie. Like, even John Wick, like, chapters 1, 2, and even 3, like, there's a lot of moments where you can tell whether it's some guy being shot in the head or the body, and, like, there's always, blood splatter or the effect of a bullet hole appearing in somebody, or certain effects where if you look hard enough, you can see where it's a clear bit of CGI, something added in post, a visual effect. And if you've seen it in movies and you have a good eye for it, it's much more noticeable than other movies. Like, you watch Hateful Eight, and they use squibs, which are very practical effects that, you fire off the blank and the sound makes the pressure erupt, and Tarantino levels of blood are pretty excessive, but still it looks good because you're seeing as if somebody was actually being shot somewhere. So I like that. And in this movie, while there is some digital work, I would assume here and there, I almost thought it was unnoticeable. They use a lot of squibs, and whenever they could be practical in this film, they were, and that adds even more to it, like good makeup, especially during and post fighting makeup, bruising. I mean, you see it in the trailer, he's just sitting there I'm nobody, and it's like, oh my god, looks like he's been through the ringer. The only negative things, so one, it's not so much negative, but it's a similar thing that happened in Hardcore Henry. When the action really, really, really picks up, things can get a tad bit shaky. It didn't happen a lot. It didn't happen as much as it did in Chaos Walking or something like Captain America Winter Soldier, but there were some moments where the camera work gets a little bit helter-skelter, and I was just like, I don't know how I feel about this. Didn't detract enough from the movie experience. It was just noticeable enough here and there where I'm like, okay, director's getting a little bit overzealous. Maybe we should tone back how the physicality of our camera work here. Without giving away any spoilers for the film, I felt like the core family that Bob Odenkirk has in the movie, I felt like their resolution could have been better by the end. There is resolution, whether it's positive or negative, I will not say, but I wish it was a stronger resolution, because it felt like everybody, like these side characters, even the main villain, other members of his family or friends or all that, it felt like all these people had scenes that really kind of wrapped up their character and gave closure to that part of the story, and I felt like that was kind of missing for his core family, funny enough. I would have liked to have seen a bit better closure, maybe a few more minutes of screen time, maybe an addition here or two in the final act of the film, just to get more on his family and all that, because I felt like a driving force of this, very also similar to Breaking Bad, is the family that he wants to both protect, but also wants to, get his daughter's bracelet back, and other things that kind of unfold in the course of the film. But a lot of it hinges on the family. I mean, part of it's he says it himself, there's a long dormant piece of him that he just really kind of wants to do this again. Part of him wants to move on, but it's hard to leave that part of your life behind when it's that big and you're that good at it. But I just felt like there wasn't an adequate resolution when it came to one of the primary drivers of the film, which was his family. But honestly, that's the only negative thing I have to say. Look, I'll leave it like this. Nobody, I give a strong 4 out of 5. I thought it's fantastic. I thought it was near perfect. Like I said, the only things that were left out for me was the lack of resolution that I wanted to see with him and his family. But that being said, if you're a fan of Bob Odenkirk, you're probably going to really enjoy this film. If you're a fan of that John Wick style, violent retribution, good guy trying to, beat his way through the bad guys and all of this, dark comedy, violent action packed, that kind of deal, but with an actual decent story to kind of drive things along. You care about the characters, you care about him, you're very invested in what's going on. If you want something like that, then it's good to go. And what I love about it is it's R, so there's not any holding back, and you get the PG-13 violence of people get shot and there's no blood, and that's not what happens in real life. So I really enjoyed this. I think it was a very, very fun film. I would recommend going to see it in theaters. If you don't like violence for the sake of violence, then I guess don't go see it. If you hate Bob Odenkirk, don't go see it. If you don't like these types of films and you could I pass on John Wick and his friends, then it's probably not the film for you. But otherwise, I would recommend going to see it 100%. And that's honestly all I have to say. I love this director's work so far. I loved Hardcore Henry. I loved Nobody. So I really hope this director keeps getting a bit more notoriety, or people maybe get to know his name a little bit more if I stop butchering it. And I would love to see what this guy does next, because I'm a fan so far of his filmography. But that's all I have to say about Nobody. So thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next movie review that I do. Might be Kong vs. Godzilla. I don't know. We'll see. I'm definitely going to go see it, and I'm definitely going to review it, so we'll find out. But stay tuned, and thank you very much for watching. Goodbye, travelers.